I got my sweaty pants on, dude. It was even with these on, it was chilly. So
Yeah.
it wasn't exactly fucking warm.
I put
But
this hoodie on. I was like, even at like 3:00 in the afternoon, I put this hoodie on. I'm like, damn, that breeze is chilly.
yeah, it's chilly. Minus the breeze, I think it would have felt pretty good. But that breeze makes it fucking nips, hard nips.
Yeah.
Oh shit, dude. I felt like I'm like part of me is glad that you were like, hey, 7:00, because I felt like garbage earlier. And I don't know why. Well, I think I kind of know why. I think just like I haven't slept at all in, I don't know, a long time, like meaningful sleep. And I
Yeah.
think it's one of those days where it just finally started catching up with me.
Yeah.
So it like all kind of hit at the same time. Cause I can feel, you know how like when you get stressed, you can feel the pressure in your shoulders, like the back of your shoulders and your upper back and in your neck.
The tenseness.
Yeah. I've been feeling a ton of that. So I'm
That was,
chalking it up to just the fact that I've just been stressed out over stupid shit. But
that was my yesterday. Yesterday was
yeah,
fucking wild, man.
that tight deadline you had.
It was so unrealistic, and somehow I pulled it out of my ass.
Yeah, I hate that shit. I'm at the point now where I just go, nah, it ain't gonna happen. But I mean, I get it. But yeah, it still sucks.
Yeah, it's
Anywho, what are you smoking?
McAuliffe. Leyenda.
Is it any good?
It's not really hitting my fancy right now, but I just got done eating Mexican and like 2 margaritas, and now a French vanilla cap with it.
Oh, that actually sounds pretty good. I feel like that'd be a good combination. I haven't done the whole coffee and cigars, and it's been a hot minute.
It's you know, it's not too bad. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Like we've talked
Dude, that
about.
mug is dope. That thing is sweet.
We've talked about this so many times, but I feel like it's, you kind of have to chalk it up to sometimes you're just not in the mood for certain cigars.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
Yeah, that definitely happens. Well, I mean, it happens to me more often than not, to be honest with you. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just started getting some like real good fucking shit that I've smoked. Like I smoked the
Look at that thing.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. I smoked the Rodriguez earlier, the series 84, and
Does
it
it
was
still hold up?
Do what?
Does it still hold up?
Oh my god, dude, that cigar is fucking unreal. It's unreal good. Yeah, it holds up. And I've been smoking the shit out of those Diez de Glorias as well, and those hold up. I've smoked 4, and I'm not gotten sick of them yet. So, hats off to AJ Fernandez. Cheap plug. I'll have that review out sometime this weekend. So
Yeah, I'll get you that stuff.
yeah. I like the not that this is relevant to anyone who's listening right now, but I really dig the background border for dude, that's awesome. It looks fucking sweet. It looks so professional. Like if this is like how we gonna have to do some things going forward, it's like let's make it look the best it can, and it looks pretty dope. I like it a lot.
I like changing up the scenery too in the videos, like, but the
But
yeah, the graphics. Oh, look at this. Oh, it's so nice. It's so professional. Like all this stuff down here and up here.
So what I thought at first was you did one of those really fucking chintzy virtual backgrounds, and I was like, why is your virtual background got wires in it? And then I realized you were at mom's, and I was like, oh, got it.
I was like, I don't have enough time to get to the house quick enough for 7, so I'll just record it from here.
No, I mean that's fine. It's shit. I don't care either way.
But I knew that was going to be the case, so I've been dragging around this fucking mic like in my book bag just to be safe.
Dude, I like it. It's pretty sweet. It sounds really good. It looks like it has controls on the microphone too. I'm sure this is boring the fuck out of anyone who's listening, but it's pretty dope looking. I like it.
But if you're getting into podcasting, you gotta keep your ear out for what works and what doesn't. And so if you hear this, just know that I'm using a $120 some Yeti mic.
Yeah. Speaking of, I got another one of those questions where someone's like, looking to start my own podcast. What would you recommend? And I responded because I was in a really shitty mood. I just said, unless you're serious, don't do it. And then I said, also, there's tons of stuff you can Google that will help you with setup. I was like, and it's all relative to budget. I can tell you what I have, but it's likely something if you're just beginning that you're not going to be willing to spend. So
Yeah,
Google that shit.
you got to work with what you got from a financial standpoint 100%. But I've seen cheap budget like setups that still do a good job.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, even audio, you can get pretty good. Like it's not to me, it's not like super challenging. I just don't know why people don't use Google more. Like how am I, being not a professional podcaster, going to be the person that you're like, hey, what would you say I should do? It's like, I don't know. There's a
You know
billion ways to do
why?
this.
It's because they don't know how to use Google.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. They're like, what's a Google? I'm like, God damn it. It's only the most
I
popular search
looked
engine
up
in the world.
best mic equipment for podcasting and it says it's going to cost me $3,000, but I don't have enough to do $3,000.
Yeah.
It's like, well, don't you think you need to alter your search query a little bit differently?
And expensive podcasting gear.
Right. How
Yeah.
to
Shit, you
produce
can
a
podcast from your phone now. I mean, there's so
yeah,
many ways to do it.
yeah,
Not saying that that's the best, but
almost like a doctor's memo. You know, it's like 9/18/2020. Sit on the back balcony. It's
yeah.
64 degrees, slight chill in the air. The cicadas are swarming around me. Bees are starting to go back to their nests for hibernation. You know, like,
Yeah.
you know, but you could do it on your phone too. You're right.
Yeah. There's so many ways to podcast. But yeah, it was like, I felt bad because I just wasn't in the mood to write out. Because most of the time I'll take my time and be thorough in writing stuff out, but it takes me a long time to do that. So
Yeah,
I was like, no, I'm
dude.
not in the mood.
Dude, people, if you do written cigar reviews, you know what has been a godsend for me and Corey? Fucking dictation. What is dictation? That is, or well, better yet known across the industry, speak to text. You
Oh
want
yeah,
to get
for
ideas
sure.
out quickly? Fucking do that and then refine your wording. And it's so much quicker.
Yeah, what I realized, and it took me forever to realize it because you were the one that caused me to make this adjustment because I never thought about doing that before. There's two things. One, I'm horrible with spelling. I'm horrible with grammar, period. And I suck on a fucking keyboard. My people know my fingers are crooked. How do you think those look? They all go different directions.
See that left hand? See that pinky?
Look at that fucking thing.
That's problematic for that A key.
My it looks like my pinky's trying to get in a fight with my middle finger.
Gonna fucking get them.
It's atrocious. So trying to type on a keyboard is a fucking nightmare for me. It's an absolute nightmare. So I'm terrible on the keyboard as well. So for me to type something, you could argue takes me much longer than if I were to just take my thought to my mouth, because I'm good at that, and just text to speech or speech to text. And that works out so much better. And then I only have to make small, little, minute adjustments.
I literally thought about ways we could shorten up cigar reviews even more, where we would have independent fields for each category of how we grade our cigars, and it'd be like construction, yeah, it was good, you know, like cap structure, yeah, it was good, just like
Yeah.
we almost like bulleted versus
Like
like
the quickest, most digestible way to
right,
understand the
right,
review of a cigar. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I find myself sometimes, even recently, getting kind of long-winded and just writing. But what I do is I get all my thoughts down first, and I take those thoughts and then I kind of formulate them into nice shrouded paragraphs. And a lot of times there's so much thought and there's things that I don't want to miss that in the moment were really important. And it just causes the review to be a little longer than what I usually intend it to be. But I want to provide enough context, but not too much to make it like, I don't want half wheel, but I don't want like, it was good. And then that's it.
yeah,
You got to find a middle ground somewhere. And that middle ground is always what I try to achieve.
yeah,
It
100%.
works out okay. It works out okay.
Yeah.
How was Mexican?
Dude, it was solid, man. I got interrogated by Aunt Debbie again.
Ah, Jesus Christ. For what?
Just Kelsey and the baby and life and the challenges therein, and like seems impossible to me. Like, how are you going to make that happen? It's like, I'm going to make it happen. What? She's like, that's a lot to take on. I was like, not any more than I've had to take on in the past. I was like, I've gone.
Also, dude, there's kids starving in Ethiopia.
Yeah. I was like, I've gone
Like,
through some shit too. Like,
talk about the challenges of life. Like, it's not insurmountable. Yeah, it's stressful as shit, but it's not insurmountable. And a lot of it, most of it is good things. It's just a lot. You know what I mean? It's not bad stuff. It's good stuff. The bad stuff is, for all intents and purposes, behind you. The good stuff is yet to come. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's challenging, but it's also, there's a lot of good in it too.
let me
So
pose a question to our audience, all 6 of you.
God, I pray to God we have more than 6.
I do it to be humble. Like, how annoying is it when your family interrogates you like you're a fucking dum-dum?
Yeah. You know, it's weird. And also, so between all the cousins, I'm the youngest, but I would argue that you're probably treated like the youngest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And not for really any good reason either. It's just because.
Yeah. Well, I do act like a dum-dum. Let's be fair.
Yeah, you do, but that's different. It's difference between being like dumb and just like blatantly immature. Like, you have your shit together. I mean, there's a lot of shit going on in your life, but you have your shit together. Like, it's not one of those things where I look at it and go, oh no, Chris isn't going to be able to handle this. It's just like, Chris has handled worse than this, and he's in a really good position in life. So if there's any time to take on all this stuff, there's no better time. It's just the coordination of it is going to be challenging, but it's not impossible. You're not dumb.
You know what it is? And I got this problem. So anybody who knows my background, which probably many of you don't unless you've listened to earlier episodes, I was part of a startup company. I was an entrepreneur for like 10 years. Like, didn't know a fucking thing about how to get a company started, didn't know how to raise capital, didn't know how to do all this stuff, right? But what's funny is I feel like people ask you these questions treating you like a dum-dum because they're having a hard time wrapping their heads around it.
Right.
So
like I
couldn't
do it, so how could he do it?
Like, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So then I have to get in a defensive position relatively, where then I have to justify the means and the rationale to it because you can't wrap your head around it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's actually a really good point.
So
it's almost like someone else is feeling insecure about how they would deal with something. So how would he ever do it?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
dude, you're going to be fine. It's going to be awesome. Like, here's the thing. It's going to be stressful. It's going to be awesome. It's like, kind of, Jesus Christ, is he in the KKK? What is he wearing?
Holy shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's
what's up, bud? Okay. It's just a tracksuit. It's just a tracksuit. Everybody settle down. It's okay. Oh my God. I thought you just enlisted him. I got terrified for a second. Now he looks like Billie Eilish.
What are you doing? Hey, I'm recording, bro.
You went from Grandmaster Wizard to Billie Eilish in about 4 seconds, just with the tightening of the hood. I love that, though. Look how handsome it is. Did I tell you that? I don't know if it was you, but I assume it was Kale. Just sent me like a fucking random picture of like the underneath of his chin on Facebook.
He's been sending them to everybody.
And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, taking, I forget what he said. And I was like, love you, buddy. And he never responded.
He literally, I was in the other room and he was sending me fucking photos of himself. I'm like, Kale, you can literally have a conversation with me.
Yeah. And hasn't exactly figured out how to use the camera yet.
No, for sure not.
Technologically sound in all other areas, but people struggle with the camera, don't they?
Yes, they do.
It seems to be a tough thing.
It's like, this is a good look.
Yeah, it was like this. I was like, well, what are you doing? What is that? I was like, why am I seeing like the underside of you? So strange, but also really funny at the same time. I imagine it was down like this and he just clicked it and it just shot the camera.
He does what Dad does too. It's like, it's just like there's a photo etiquette that people don't really figure out in the beginning.
Right. It's like when people FaceTime. I love watching the videos of old people FaceTiming.
Yeah.
Just underneath of their chin, there's just a fat neck. God, that's hilarious.
Dad would do video conference calls with me where all I see is this.
Oh, that drives me nuts. You know, Dad's never done that. He's like never FaceTime me, nothing. Like never. It's never happened. And I assume he does it for Kale, but like
Yeah, only
he's never done any of the video stuff with like never.
it's just like all you can see is the upper part because the phone is like right up here on his face.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, is Kel there?" I'm like, "Why don't you fucking move your phone down?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I didn't notice." I was like, "Dad, it literally
It looks at you.
shows you. It shows you in the corner of your goddamn video call."
It's looking right at you. That's fucking hysterical. Oh God, he's so funny. The technology advances and Dad just dwindles away. It's actually quite hysterical.
Dude, I watched an hour and 20 minutes on that neuroscience chip that Elon Musk is doing.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I think the first one was supposed to be implanted in that lady's head like 2 weeks ago, but I haven't heard anything about it since. So I'm curious to see how it's working.
Yeah, they did a bunch of pig trials during this demo that they were doing.
Yeah, they've been doing the pig trials for over a year.
Yeah, they had the pig that didn't have one. They had the pig that still had one in its head, and they had one pig that they had a chip in that they took out. And they were trying to show you that the surgery and the implications that the chip has being implanted has no effects on you, is basically what they're showing.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of crazy because if it does end up being what it's intended to be in terms of helping connect the gaps and misfires in the brain, meaning that like if someone has Parkinson's disease or certain neurological disorders, it helps bridge that gap. So whatever's misfiring, it helps kind of create the connection for. So those things are null and void. So the whole idea is that like things like dementia and Alzheimer's from a long-term perspective can completely be negated by a chip in the head, which is I mean, if you think about how crazy that fucking is, I mean, it is
It's the
absolutely
size of a coin.
crazy.
It's the size of a coin. They cut out a size of a coin part of your skull and replace that part of your skull with this chip.
Did you ever listen to the Rogan podcast where he had him on where he was talking about it?
Mm-mm.
Like Elon Musk made it sound so elementary. Like Joe Rogan's like, he couldn't wrap his head around it. Like, we should just like put it in the skull. And he's just like, yeah. He's like, you just cut out a hole in the skull and it fits in the skull. And he's like, but like, it's not a piece of skull. And he's like, yeah, but it works fine. He's like, it fits in there. He's like, it's thick enough and it works great. And like he couldn't figure out like how you cut a hole in someone's skull. And he's just like, oh yeah, there's certain nerve endings that you attach it, and like made it overly simple, which is a good thing because he almost made it layman's, like almost like, hey, don't worry about how it functions. Like, don't worry about how we do it, how we implant it. Worry about its effectiveness is essentially what that conversation came to. But it was really wild listening to it because I was like, well, that's the freakiest shit I've ever heard. And Elon Musk was just like, oh yeah, just this thing that we're doing. It's like, what?
But the problem is you got to charge it like a fucking phone.
Yeah, that'd be weird. Yeah, but dude, charge it when you're sleeping. You're sleeping. Who gives a shit?
You gotta hey, sweetie.
Plug a USB cord right in that bad boy.
Like, I'm feeling frisky. It's like, well, I gotta plug in my head first.
You don't want me fucking spazzing out on you.
But
you know how bad my bipolar disorder is.
What was crazy is they were showing like, so when they install all the nodes, like the wires into your brain, that the way they do it is they make sure that they don't touch any veins to cause any internal bleeding. But on top of that, where they actually make the little pokes, like where they install the nodes into your brain, they said it's so small in diameter that it causes zero bleeding on your brain when they install it.
That's so fucking nuts.
It's so small that you don't bleed at all.
And people wonder why Elon Musk is like just hit like what is $100 billion, I think, or 200 billion. Like he went up, like at the beginning of the year, he was worth like 40 billion. Now he's worth like 200 billion. It's like, you wonder why he's worth that much money. And then people get mad that he's so fucking rich and they think he's taking advantage. And it's like, dude, the dude is trying to literally save lives every day. Like he goes against all the fucking bullshit and all the politics. It's why he moved his organization. Like he goes against all that stuff. He is like for people first in a lot of regards. And people still mad because he makes a lot of money. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I get it. Like, you want to be mad at, actually, I wouldn't even be mad at Jeff Bezos. Most people are just jealous.
That's
but
what it is. It's envy.
Yeah. You're just mad because someone else figured out how to do it.
And you're looking at someone who came from relatively nothing into something, and then you want to criticize them for having what they have.
Yeah, it drives me nuts. Like, I am obviously very capitalistic. Like, I love the idea that anybody can make something of themselves and you can start from zero. Like, no one gets mad at The Rock. The Rock makes Rock has got to be close to being a billionaire now. He's got to be close with all of his sponsorships and with he's the highest paid movie actor, what, like 5 or 6 years running? The guy's got to be worth close to $1 billion, if not more. So he is way up there, upper echelon, and no one gets mad at The Rock. Nobody, not a single fucking person.
Yeah.
The only difference is he's not selling goods. He's selling himself. But
Yeah.
he's making a ton of money and
Yep.
no one fucking complains about it.
Nope.
Yeah, that shit drives me nuts. Anyway, let's get into it. So we're doing something a little bit different today. Decided to take a break from the reviews, and we always try to interlace and intermix some different topics for the podcast. And we do that with interviews, and we like the reviews and the whole thing, but it's nice to give it a little change up. We've done some change ups like Secret Smoke. We've done Boutique Week. We do the overrated, underrated, which are really popular. Today are 5 things that make us mad about the cigar industry.
Oh.
Now, these aren't the only 5. There's probably hundreds. I think we could probably play this one out for quite some time. These are just 5. Personally, they were kind of drummed up in 2 different scenarios. One, it's just some topics that I've been thinking about ongoing. And 2, and I'm not going to say which ones directly, but I will say Alex from My Cigar Pack, who is a good friend of ours, obviously, he was here with us last weekend. So he stayed at my place for a couple days. We hung out, had a fucking great time, great conversation, got absolutely fucking smashed Saturday night. I thought I was dying Sunday morning. Like, I was like, oh my God. That is probably like the most drunk I've been in a long time. And I woke up at like 7:30 to let the dogs out. And I went to bed at 4 and I was like, oh, what did I do? And even he was like, God damn, dude, what the fuck? But he was with us, and him and I, topically, we talked about a lot of different stuff. Half of it I don't know if I remember or not, because I would say probably by 1 a.m, we were pretty sloshy. But we talked about some stuff, and so that kind of sparked some ideas for me in terms of things we can talk about. So I will start with this. Number 1, and these are no particular order, so I'm going to roll through the list. Number 1, the perception that cigars are an upper class activity. We've talked about this before. And I kept thinking, and actually what prompted me to want to talk about this is I found a really old publication of Cigar Aficionado that I had in a box during the move. So I was flipping through the pages of it, and obviously I was going to throw it away anyway, but I was flipping through the pages, and like the first thing that showed up was this ad for Rolex. It was like an ad for Rolex, and then like below that was like a picture of a yacht. And I was like, wow, the disconnect, like I understand what they're doing. I'm never going to fault Cigar Aficionado for getting the ads that they want in their publication. But the disconnection is like people try to understand the cigar industry better. I can understand how there's a barrier of entry, right? Like it seems overwhelming, or it seems like maybe I don't fit. And those are things that you and I have been trying for years to debunk. I mean, look at us, for Christ's sake. I'm wearing a hoodie and a backwards hat. You're wearing a hoodie and a backwards hat. We look like not, if you were to look at that publication, we would not be earmarked as cigar smokers. But as you have it, we smoke more cigars than most people, right? And we take our time and we develop knowledge, and we're intentionally focused on the cigar industry as a whole. So the idea that publications specifically, or that there's this perception out there that this is some sort of luxury lifestyle, it doesn't have to be. It's one of those things that irks me to no end. It's one thing that I really fucking despise about the cigar industry as a whole. I don't blame the industry, but I blame certain segments of the industry in saying that, hey, a $5 cigar is for some reason, whatever reason, or even upper echelon cigars are not meant for those that don't have the wealth to support it. Because the reality is there's a lot of people that fucking love to smoke cigars. I'm a human being created the same way anybody else is. The difference of money, the difference of economics is just that. It's not a difference in preference. It's not difference in palatability. It's not preference in terms of passion or being a hobbyist. It's simply you may have more money than I do, so you can afford some of the luxuries that come with cigars. But in terms of the enjoyment around smoking, we are no different. It's something that's really fucking bothered me a lot. And I've been thinking about it a lot. And I looked at that publication and I literally went, ugh, I just threw it in the trash. is just so, to me, it's so off-putting. And like, what I want to put out there is like, I wonder if people see any of that changing anytime soon. Like, I wonder if like the Cigar Aficionado publication hits with a younger generation the same way that it hits with an older generation. I'd have to think that it doesn't. I'm sure it's as popular as it ever has been. I bet a part of me thinks that's just because the cigar industry is growing naturally. But I think if you were to look at some of the statistics, I think you could probably discern from everything that we know that it's probably not as popular with a younger generation of people who are interested in smoking or are smoking currently as it is for folks who are middle-aged or older.
I feel like it's kind of a twofold thing. Like, imagine this. Let's say I'm 22 and I'm only making 35 grand a year. And I have an interest in cigars, and I see, probably Cigar Aficionado, because that's more the most reputable you could probably find from a publication standpoint. And then I see their top 25, and I see cigars that are priced around $10, some more. And I see the lifestyle that these people put on in this publication with Rolexes and yachts and planes and big houses and nice suits and whatever, traveling the world. Immediately right there, if I had a certain amount of income and I see that, I'm immediately going to think I can't afford this.
Right.
Or sustain it, right? If I wanted to get into it as a hobby, I probably don't have the money to sustain it because I'm seeing all these high-end cigars. I'm seeing all these people with a lot of money. It's like, well, they can afford it because they make that much money. And they can enjoy the pleasures of a cigar any day they want to, multiple cigars, and it's not ever going to break the bank.
Right.
Are cigars cheap? Not really, from an average standpoint. Can you get your hands on cigars that are good, that are more economically priced for lower incomes? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, how do you get past that perception of like demystifying that in order for you to enjoy cigars and afford them and have them as a sustainable hobby, how do you demystify this idea that they've instilled in our heads that you got to make a certain amount of money, you got to have a certain lifestyle to enjoy it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly. So like my thought is specifically around that is like, I think and again, I don't fault anybody for filling ad space, especially as they see fit in their own publication, like to each their own. But part of me wonders is that like, how do you continue? And we've talked about this numerous amounts of times, and it's literally why we exist as a podcast. It's why we exist in what we do, is that we're not an older generation and we don't have droves of money. Like I don't own a yacht. I don't even own a boat. Like earlier today, I was thinking about buying a jet ski. Like you want to talk about fucking entry level into the boating world, into like personal watercraft. That's as entry as it fucking gets, right? So we don't have those niceties. We don't have those luxuries. We haven't built wealth over a period of time. So I kind of think about it and I go, okay, well, if I were to try to convince somebody who was younger, who was looking for a hobby or was interested in smoking, like how would I entice them? I can tell you what I wouldn't do is that I wouldn't steer them towards those publications. I wouldn't be like, hey, pick up the latest issue of Cigar Aficionado. It'll really help you out. That's the last place I would steer somebody because, like you said, I see no sustainability in that. Someone's going to look at that and be overwhelmed by the idea that this is only supposed to be enjoyed by certain people. There's certainly other places that I would steer them in towards of knowledge, information, what they may be looking for, helping them, guiding them through the process of smoking and so on. But it's not going to be like, hey, look at this magazine and read everything you can read and tell me what you think. I think it's the wrong message. So I get a little tired. It gets a little, I don't know. I just get burnt out on the idea that that's the only way, or that's the I would say the popular way to get acclimated to cigars is like Cigar Aficionado publication. Because there's people that I talk to that I know that don't smoke cigars very often, and we call them like the weekend smokers or the on the golf course smokers. They're like, oh yeah, I read an issue of Cigar Aficionado, blah blah blah, and it was like, well, man, I would say if you're if you have some optimism in getting into cigar smoking, that's probably not the way that I would go. There's certainly other directions that I would go in terms of gaining some interest. So I don't know. It gets old, and dude, honestly, like even on Instagram, like I'm tired of fucking seeing pictures of people holding cigars, and it's just like a picture. It's like a picture with the face of their watch with it. It's just like their hand. And I'm like, ugh, or it's just somebody dressed in a fucking flashy suit. Like part of me thinks is like, you just put on that flashy suit so you can fucking take a picture. Like that flashy suit is essentially meaningless because, you know, you put it on for this one occasion to shoot a photo. It's like, are you actually wearing that consistently all the time? Is that your attire from a day-to-day perspective? I would have to argue that it's probably not. For some people, I'm sure it is, but I think for a lot of people, it's not.
What I would say to any new smoker that is tight on a budget, consider getting into subscriptions. And the reason I say that is because, one, you're not going to have enough experience to know what you like. The ones that people are going to recommend you to are going to be $10 sticks and up sometimes because they're trying to push a sale.
Right.
But there's so many good online subscription services that gives you the advantage of getting into this industry without breaking the bank, that exposes you to new brands that you've never heard of, that are extremely cost effective, because a lot of the packs that you'll buy, if you were to break down that stick per cost MSRP as a single that you would get at a B&M, and you compare that across the 5 or 6 cigars that you get in a pack, guaranteed almost always, one of those cigars is free.
Yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, yeah, when you consider an MSRP, yeah, for sure. Yeah, what you would pay for a brick and mortar, and just with the understanding that when you're paying for a brick and mortar, you're paying for all the overhead that exists within that brick and mortar. A lot of people get pissed off because they're like, I pay more in a brick and mortar. It's like, dude, you get to sit in that comfy leather chair for 3 fucking hours. There's a cost associated with it. Those lockers you get to enjoy, the free waters, or, you know, whatever it may be, the building that is being occupied that allows you the space to smoke on any occasion that you want is worth something. Yeah, of course it's going to be less, or it's going to be more expensive a brick and mortar. Yeah, I hate people who argue that point. It should have been one of the things on the fucking list. Maybe I'll add that for next one. But yeah, so for me, it's just like the luxury lifestyle thing, I think is going to kind of getting tired and old. And for anybody, and here's my thing, I'm not knocking anybody with a lot of money who has yachts and has Rolexes and smokes cigars. Like, that's fucking great. There's certain things that I aspire to in life. And if there's one day where I have a big ass fucking boat and I'm chilling in retirement and I'm smoking a cigar, I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be proud of myself at the same time.
Don't treat them as the standard, is Corey's point.
Correct. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. Let's move on to number 2. Just because you have a brand doesn't mean you should have a brand. This is something that I was thinking about because I had someone reach out to me and was like, hey, will you try our cigars? And it happens all the time. And it's brands I've never even heard of. And I'll bounce these brand names off of other people that I know in the industry and go, have you ever heard of these guys? Are they reputable? Do you know who they are? I've never heard the name before. And if I would say 3 or 4 out of those 5 people that I constantly go to and ask them a question about, have you ever heard of them? If 3 or 4 of them out of the 5 say never heard of them before, I usually dismiss it. And it's not because I'm not saying you don't make great things, but then I also wonder about your intentionality around what you're doing, right? What are you trying to do as far as exposure of your brand? Are you trying to utilize what we do and our brand to help support your brand? What are your other strategies that exist? Matt Booth said it best on our episode. And for some people, it's a huge turnoff. But this is the difference, because you asked the question, and it's funny because I still think about your response. But I think that you got to place people in 2 categories. When Matt Booth was very blatant and saying, don't do it, don't fucking do it, he's meaning in a sense that I think most people, you could argue, are not up for the challenge. They're not up for the long term. It's kind of like a fad in a sense. It's like, oh, this thing sounds really cool. Wouldn't it be cool to get into cigars? Wouldn't it be cool to have your own brand, without the understanding of what it takes to actually support that brand from inception through whatever you want to get it to?
Yeah.
Some people just don't have that drive and intensity to get it there. Matt Booth is a guy that you would obviously argue has that kind of intensity about him and has the background and has the knowledge. So some people inherently are going to have the characteristics to see that through to success. But I would say more often than not, you have people that don't. It just sounds like a cool idea. And I'm seeing that more and more. It's like a cool fucking idea. Hey, I found this contract. And by the way, if you pay someone enough money, they're going to make a fucking cigar for you. But here's the reality. They don't give a fuck about your long-term success. I hate to fucking tell you. They don't care. They want their money. They want the upfront money. You got $50,000 to produce sticks. They're going to produce the sticks for you. Whether or not they get another $50,000 based on your success or not success, they don't care. They got their 50 grand already. They got their money.
Yeah.
They're not going to help you build out your fucking brand.
Yeah, and let's break it down even further and say this. This is an industry that is fraught with a lot of challenges of producing a product and getting it out to the masses.
Yeah.
This is an industry where you can't get online, you can't advertise it, you can't get on Shark Tank and promote your brand new product to the world, right? There is no calling your local fucking news station because they got nothing else to cover for them to talk about your cigar brand.
Right.
Only way you succeed in having a brand in this industry, which is the hardest but is the most effective way to do it, is guerrilla marketing.
Yeah. Grassroots effort, right?
This is an industry where you have to meet a lot of people, you've got to talk to a lot of folks, and you got to get them to try your sticks. And a lot of that comes down to traveling to brick and mortars for them to try out your stuff, because they you need them, they don't need you. They've got a humidor filled with stuff that they know sells to their clientele. So even with a stellar product, you have to make that, you have to reach across the table much further than they have to in order to get your product on a shelf.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I think on the other side of it are the partnerships that you create with the people who can produce the cigars for you. That's the other aspect. So you have the one aspect, and as honestly, you articulated that perfectly. You have to reach further across the table than they do, because you're right. You're fighting for space on a shelf. Guess what? At most B&Ms, that shelf space is already taken up. So you got to convince them why they should take something down to add your stuff in. But to the other part of that is you have to have something good enough to make them want to take things off your shelf and put your shit in. Whether that be your relationship, whether it be the cigar that you produce, whether it be the reputation that you have in the industry, what have you done, right? You've got to sell yourself and sell the story and sell the product. And it's all got to be meaningful enough for them to say, okay, I'm going to exit this from my humidor and add yours in to take a shot. And I think a lot of people aren't willing to put in all that work. It's almost like, I think some people think it's the mentality of Field of Dreams. It's like, if you build it, they will come. In the cigar industry, that is not the fucking case. I know people who work their fingers to a fucking bone, and I'm going to name the name because we've already talked about it before. I think about Mo from Patina. There's not a guy that I think is harder working in terms of like a solo effort and with the help of brokers, getting his cigar out to the masses. He fucking traveled, obviously pre-coronavirus, all the fucking time. He was feet on the streets. He was doing all of himself. He was trying to build the brand. He was visiting the factories. He's gaining the knowledge. He's gaining the experience. He's understanding the blending. There's so much that goes into it just to derive a little bit of success out of what you're doing, just a little bit, before you can really make something meaningful. And here's the thing. It's never overnight success. If you think about what some of these brands have gone through over a period of time to get a moniker of fucking success, it's insane. I would argue that there's I could go into things that I know intimately well, right?
Yeah.
Take my job that I do currently, for example. Anything in audio video technology. I could go start my company. I could start a company tomorrow doing like digital signage, or I could do residential install or whatever it may be. And the amount of money I could derive from that in a short period of time would be so much further amplified than anybody who starts their own cigar brand. I could get that off the ground, let's say in 365 days, I'd be kicking the shit out of anybody in the cigar industry in terms of the revenue that I could generate.
That's a good point. And in fact, if there was any strategy of how you, before you even start a brand, get involved in the industry before you make a brand, which is something me and Corey have talked about a lot. If we were to ever consider making our own brand, We wanted to make sure that everybody fucking knew us.
Yeah, of course.
There was people already willing to work with us and excited to work with us before we ever did that.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
that said, that's probably like something that any of you should consider if you're starting up a brand. Like, make sure you're already got a foothold in the industry and people know you. The second part, there's another aspect of which is the sales side, which is, listen, this industry is very sociable. This is an industry that's fraught, or let's say is built on a handshake type of promise,
Yeah.
right? I like you, shake your hand, yeah, I'll carry your shit. I'll tell you this right now. If there's any doubt in your mind that you're a terrible salesman and you come off as an asshole in your day-to-day life, not gonna work, bro.
Yeah.
Not,
Not
like,
long term, it's not.
yeah, like you're gonna have a real fucking time making your way into this industry if you come off as an asshole or you're not sociable or personable. Like, good luck. Good
Yeah,
fucking.
I think there's some people that have the mentality of fake it till you make it, but I don't look at that as a long-term strategy. If you want sustainability in what you're doing, you better be doing it in the most thoughtful and intentional way possible, which is not a lot of people in this industry. And a lot of these, and so obviously I'm not going to name names, but some of these brands who have reached out are people who literally are just people who have not gained the knowledge, who have not networked, who have not had the exposure to the industry, that may have talked to one person and one person's like, oh yeah, that's a hell of an idea. And I'm not saying that you can't be successful doing that. What I'm saying is you're going to have a hell of a fucking time. And the reality, and if I would put a percentage behind it, is going to be a very low one in terms of you deriving any success from your effort at all. Whatever that effort may look like. You could be grinding yourself into the fucking ground and never make anything meaningful of it. Or you may not be doing anything at all. You may just think, I'm going to come out with a brand and I'm going to throw up an Instagram and see if it sells. And you may take the lazy approach. And I guarantee you then it will not be successful. But I'm seeing more and more of it because I think it's good that people are fascinated by the cigar industry, and it's good that people are passionate about it. But I think you have to understand, I think there needs to be an understanding of what your capability is and really what your intention is around it. Like, you made a good point. It's something that, like, you and we've talked about doing for a long period of time before, really at the inception of this podcast, and even like kind of fondled the idea a little bit before. It's interesting now, given who we've been exposed to and the people that we know, where those offers sometimes trickle to us in terms of like, I would love to do something for you guys. And even then I go, I don't have the best way and the best effort to support it this particular period in time. It's not a right endeavor for us at this particular moment. It doesn't mean that things won't change, a couple of years from now, 2 years from now, 3 years, when the right opportunity presents itself and it's something that we can really get behind, it may make more sense. But I think a lot of times people see it as I can get into this, let's do it, without the understanding of what kind of grind it really is. And again, I go back to Mo. Like, Mo calls it a grind, and I know what he's done to support his own brand. And by the way, he's created some of the fucking best cigars I've ever had. So if you think about that, as far as like his effort and what he's done in the industry and all the people that he knows, and it's still a fucking grind. You know what I mean? Like, Mo isn't driving around in a goddamn fucking $150,000 car living in a mansion. Like, he's grinding it the fuck out, and he's passionate about it. And there's no one in the world that I would say, hey, is going to be more successful long-term than Mo, because I know who he is as a person. But he's a perfect example of someone that says like, hey, when you do this, know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. This one's a good one. Know-it-alls. I was thinking about this the other day because someone actually hit me up and they didn't realize it was fucking satirical. It was actually a YouTube comment. You were doing what you usually do and telling a story around a cigar that isn't the fucking story around the cigar. And someone fucking wrote out an entire correction as to why the cigar was created. And I said, hey, bucko, it's fucking satirical. It's meant to be a joke. But it got me thinking about the know-it-alls, because there's often times where I get people, and I think about it the same way that I think about people who are like real into stats with sports. Like, if I ask a person, like, how many points did Michael Jordan score against the Celtics in game 6 of this particular series, they'd be able to rattle it off their head. No one likes a know-it-all, right? Because I could say, oh, Jordan scored 40, he scored 40 some odd points, and that person be like, well, it was 45 to be exact. It was 45 points to be exact. And be like, no one likes a fucking know-it-all. There's a lot of know-it-alls in the cigar industry. They drive me fucking nuts because it happens so often now. The bigger and bigger the podcast gets, the bigger the Instagram gets, the social media following gets. Everybody likes to inject their little fucking comments. Everybody. I'll get a message or I'll get a comment and be like, well, it was actually this or is this or this. Everyone has to fucking throw out their opinion or comment or throw in a stat about something all the time. The cigar industry is hands down filled with fucking know-it-alls. And guess what? They drive me crazy. Here's the thing. There is no part of anything that we do between you and I where we would say ever that we're know-it-alls. I wouldn't say we're experts. I wouldn't say that we have the background to say that we are the top echelon of knowledge in existence when it comes to cigars. We know enough to be dangerous. We know quite a bit because of the people we've been exposed to and the things that we've been able to do as a result of what we do in the podcast and what we do with the show and what we do with the website. We've been exposed to a lot of information and knowledge from a lot of different people, but in no way, shape, or form makes us high-level experts. So I'm getting really sick and tired of people fucking slipping into the DMs going, well, it was actually this. I'm telling you what, if it happens more, if like I'm at the end of my rope with it, I'm just going to literally put the poop emoji and just respond and then fucking delete it. Like it is driving me nuts. And industry, it's almost like beer snobs. It drives me fucking crazy.
First and foremost, if you listen to our show, and let's say you're a new smoker, I'm speaking to all of you that don't necessarily have the knowledge, and you listen to this show because one, hopefully it's entertaining, but two, you're learning a little bit of something and don't feel like you're out of your element to understand the cigar industry. Dude, we so often make it a point not to be know-it-alls.
Right.
In fact, to your
it's
point,
kind of like the basis of everything we do.
And to your point, when I make up stories, I know it's fucking wrong. That's why I do it.
Dude, by the way, the Bones one is so funny. I use that as a clip. It's so good. Not only was that funny, but the other thing, so when I was producing the podcast, I was going through everything, just making sure that I had everything covered.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that I listen to a full episode, and I'll make this quick. The second clip that I found that I'll post tomorrow was the clip where you were talking about the elephant dig. We were like, it's tough and big. And I just started dying laughing. Dude, I watched that clip like 6 times, and I literally every time I was like literally drinking a seltzer and like spitting it up because I was laughing so hard. It was so good. But anyway, yeah, so you do those to be funny, and it's weird to me how people don't pick up on that. Like where people are literally like, well, actually, and it's like, motherfucker, if like, don't even listen to us if you think any of this was fucking real. It was almost, so it reminds me of the time where you did the Umbagog one for the Zaka cigar. Dude, and people were like, what? And you do it damn near every episode. Not every episode. Even like the Yamasa, like you did that one too, which is really funny. A Japanese company, right? Like I think about these because I think they're hilarious, and a lot of other people do too. But the fact that anybody takes that seriously and then wants to insert a correction into it, I just want to be like, listen, I'm going to insert my dick in your mouth because that's how much you piss me off.
Hey, assholes, I'm going to give you a little message. And this isn't to toot my own horn. Maybe it is to toot my own horn a little bit, or at least me and Corey's horns. But do you think you're going to remember that cigar from my story or the actual story on the cigar?
That's a good point. That's a good point. The Bones one was a good one. It ends so abruptly, and I laughed my ass off when you're talking about it being the hide and seek champ, and then you just stop talking. It's so good. Yeah, it's like, come on, people. But that like happens in all aspects of cigars. Like someone always has an opinion like, this is the best way to cut. This is the best way I like. This is the best way to do this. And it's funny because the people who I'd actually consider experts in the cigar industry are the ones that are like, do it your own fucking way. Like
Yeah.
whatever you're most comfortable with, you do it. People who have tons of fucking experience in the cigar industry that know more about cigars than most people ever fucking will in their lifetime are the ones that are super comfortable and confident saying like, hey, there's no right or wrong answer. Like, do shit your own way.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
that's all you got to do. Like, just do you, and whatever you're most comfortable with, do you, like that. There's no fucking definitive way to light. There's no definitive way to store. There's no like that was one that fucking irked me to no end, was when I like posted some of the Tupperware stuff, right? Because I really I'm an advocate for the Tupperware because I think, again, going back to it, I'm someone who has two encapsulated and enclosed humidors, some nice hardware, right?
Yeah.
Both in what I would say is like a lower end winador, and one of which is a very high end winador, right? That's like self-contained, the whole thing, right? And I always find myself going back to, out of both those options that cost me well over $1,000,
Yeah.
my Tupperware that cost me $30 is my favorite. So I like to put it out there to people. It's like, hey, this is another option. This is what makes sense. Fuck the flashy. The flashy doesn't matter. The units don't matter. Storage is what matters. And I put that out there, and I remember this guy commenting, he goes, he's like, dude, I think you're way off. There's nothing better than a fucking cabinet with solid Spanish cedar shelves. You really get that. And it's like, that guy, if I could grab him through Instagram and fucking punch him in the throat, I would have done it, because that guy doesn't speak to the masses of people who don't have thousands of dollars, going back to the pretentiousness, I think sometimes of cigars, that don't have the money to do that. I love the option of Tupperware because it's versatile. You can change things out very often, especially if you get something that is airtight. I get the waterproof sealed ones because I know they're going to be airtight. Dude, I've had Boveda packs in those goddamn fucking Tupperwares for a year and a half, almost 2 years now, and they're not dried out. Like, it's perfect. So like, even that, when someone decides to comment and go, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be a cabinet with cedar shelves, and it's got to have these things, or you got to light your cigar with cedar sticks, or you got to light your cigar
Listen,
with match,
interrupt
can't
you.
torch it.
Bottom
Dude, fuck
line.
you.
Bottom line to your know-it-all point. Dude, if we wanted to ask, what is your preferred way to store your cigars? Then that's fine. If you want to give up your own, what works for you, and we
Right.
solicit you and say, how do you store your cigars? What do you think is the best solution
Right.
for your cigars? That's different. But yeah, just interjecting, like when you're trying to explain to someone this is how I do it, and then you gotta fucking try to correct them like it's the wrong way, it's fucking absurd. It's
Yeah.
absurd.
Yeah, for sure. It
Like,
drives me nuts.
there's a difference with saying I love storing my cigars in Tupperware because X, Y, and Z. It would be different if I said I like storing my cigars in Tupperware because of X, Y, and Z, but are there better options?
Right.
If I solicit you, go for it.
Right.
Dude, don't just fucking interject saying you're wrong.
Yeah,
And
it happens all and it happens honestly with like all kinds of things in cigars, from like the rolling process. Like, if you think about everything that goes into making a cigar, there's always some sort of fucking consumer expert on fucking everything. It drives me nuts. And it's like, I'm sorry, were you the person at the factory that was rolling this? Were you the person at the factory deveining this cigar? Were you the person at the factory that was sorting the tobacco? No, you weren't. Also, you have no practical practice in it either. So what makes you an expert? There's so many people that talk the expertise in the cigar industry that really, quite frankly, don't know shit. The difference is I don't know shit. I like to learn. I'm learning every single day. I go through publications all the fucking time. I use my resources. Every single day I'm learning something new about cigars because I am focused on learning about it. I don't pretend to know everything, and I don't pretend to assert my authority on something in terms of knowing something to the masses. Because I think this is just, it's a terrible fucking approach. Help people learn is one thing. Being a know-it-all is another. Know-it-alls fucking suck in the cigar industry. They're the worst. Let's get to topic number 4. This is an interesting one. Cigar aging. I wanted to bring this one up because it's directly related to some of the things that I do on occasion, and I do it unintentionally. So there's a lot of people that think that aging a cigar for a long-standing period of time is going to help, like a fine wine, is going to help increase the value of flavor in that cigar. It's going to enhance the experience. But with tobacco, that's not necessarily the case. Now, here's the thing. I age cigars unintentionally, not intentionally. I just don't smoke them. There are certain things that I have in my humidor that I want to smoke on certain occasions. There's certain things I have in my humidor that I want to keep for a long time because you cannot fucking find them anywhere. It's not that I'm intentionally aging them for any purpose. I'm not saying that in 7 years, this cigar is going to reach its fucking height of potential and that's when I need to smoke it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that feel that you should be aging cigars for a considerable amount of time to get some sort of result out of that experience.
Yeah.
But really, and it's like we've talked about it before, there's diminishing returns. John Huber has said it best. This is what I fucking love. He has told us numerous amounts of times when we talk to him, you can age a cigar out. And even in particular, some of his own cigars. I remember I posted a picture of the 2014 Angel's Anvil, the TA Crown Head cigar. And he goes, dude, is that thing even still good? Like, have you not aged that out yet? And I've had it not that long. Someone actually sent me 2 of them. So I haven't had them for an extended period of time, but they're old, you know, and he's like, dude, you got to smoke that thing. Like, you got to get rid of that. But then part of me is like, well, you can't get them anywhere. So I don't want to. I like the idea of collecting. It's just how I am. It's who I am by nature. So that's when I say when I'm unintentionally aging shit, it's essentially just collecting stuff. But there is a perception around aging cigars for an extended period of time is going to heighten or elevate what you get out of that experience. And that's just not always the case. In a lot of instances, it's not the case at all, because here's the reality. A lot of this tobacco is already fucking aged. There's so much tobacco out there that goes into these products that's aged for 10 years or more. Some of it 2-3 years or more. So the reality of getting diminishing returns is actually pretty heightened. You're not going to get anything out of it. It's going to hit a peak period.
Yeah. So let me give my 2 cents for all of you. The furthest I would age anything intentionally.
I said, you don't age shit. You smoke through fucking everything. You like that shit, wild child.
I will only age something intentionally for 1 to 3 months.
Yeah, that's a short period of time too.
That's mostly from a resting standpoint to make sure
there's a lot of people who are like 20 fucking years, dude.
To make sure that it's properly humidified and I'm not going to have any issues with burn. Now, that said, a lot of people will swear that an aged cigar that you bought out of the shelf, smoked it, like, ooh, that's harsh, it's spicy, blah, 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 blah. And you smoke it 3 years later, it's like, oh, it's so smooth and so mild, right?
Right.
Right. There's that whole thing. It's like it's mellowed out. Yeah, it might have, maybe, because your tobacco's dying on you. but here's what I'll say. If you like the idea of a mellower cigar from a brand and you're gonna sit on it for 2 years before you smoke it, I'm going to tell you right now, you could buy any fucking cigar. There's so many goddamn cigars you could buy right now, never have to age, and give you that exact same fucking flavor profile.
That's actually a good point.
Why does it have to be that brand that you got to age for 3 fucking years to appreciate it when you could buy stuff that is equally as good as that flavor you think is great 3 years later and smoke it right fucking now and get that goddamn same experience?
Yeah, it's a good point. That's a good point. I'll put it this way too. Just something that happened to me recently. Since Alex was over on the weekend, we went to a place called Jungle Jim's. Jungle Jim's is what I would consider the hidden gem of all cigars. By the way, there's so many people who are looking for the 2019 La Karim Bellicoso. And like, people are looking for boxes. They're looking to get their hands on any of them. I fucking go to the goddamn bargain bin at Jungle Jim's, and there it sits. I find Toro cigars. I found an original Las Moreas with the fucking light blue band. It looked like a dog had mangled the fucking cellophane on it. It looked like someone had chewed through it. Dude, I found so much. I found $15 to $20 cigars for $3 or $4 in that goddamn bargain bin. Without Alex went in there with me, and he was like, "What the fuck is happening? Like, why is this stuff here?" And we're talking to one of the reps there, and he goes, "Oh, he's like, oh, I have a 2017 Los Calaveras in the back." I was like, wait. How do you have 2017 Los Calaveras still in here? He's like, we have a box of them. Alex bought one off of this guy for $5. $5. The point I'm trying to make is the 2017 Los Calaveras, I only had one left. It's my favorite Los Calaveras. And we came back After we ate dinner, we came back and we poured some bourbon, and Alex was like, let's smoke that 2017. He's like, you got a 2017? I've got a 2017. Let's smoke these fucking bad boys. So we did. And it was like the first time, because I was just going to sit on that cigar forever. And I'm not saying this like, it's not the holy grail fucking cigar. It's like a 2017 Lost Caliber. It just happens to be my favorite. It's the only one I had left. So I was just going to hold on to it for a while. Dude, I'm so glad I smoked it. It was so fucking good. Like both of us were just like, oh my God, this is fucking great. This cigar is so good. And here's this and that. We were just volleying back and forth and commenting on it. It was wonderful. My point being is that if I would have sat on that for another 5-10, like who knows what the experience would have been? I have no idea. Like, would I have aged it out, as John has said so many times, like, hey, you're going to age that cigar out, you need to smoke it. Perhaps. I don't know if it would have got any better or worse, but it was appropriate for that moment. So I think the whole idea as far as like aging something so far beyond what you should, and especially if you get diminishing returns, like you said, the cigar is going to mellow out. You're one of those people that's like, I want it at the height of its fucking flavor. I would say that the 2018 Los Calaveras, and I actually smoked that this weekend too, so much better. Honestly, that is better with age on it. That fucking cigar was great. I've been on that thing for 2 years. It was fucking awesome. Also, the last one that I had. But like that for you, you were like, no, I like it. I like it fucking straight out of the fucking boat. Like I like it straight off the fucking truck, right? And I think there's something to that. I think there is an exaggerated flavor up front that you're going to get a different experience if you hold on to it a little bit longer. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I think some people think that you have to take a cigar and you've got to age it for an extended period of time, and that's when it's going to be at its height of goodness. And it's not necessarily the case.
I agree.
All right, let's get to the last topic. Big brand dick riders. This is one that I've talked about before. We talked about a lot on the podcast, but we haven't gone into great detail. This is something that made me, honestly, it made me think of it because of the CAO bones as we reviewed it. Because CAO is one of those companies that has a lot of fucking CAO dick riders. People have been on the dick of CAO for a long time. By the way, I'm pointing at myself when I say this. I smoked CAOs profusely for many, many, many years. Enjoyed the cigars, liked them greatly. Wasn't really curious about other stuff. It was like, that was the brand I started with. And for me at the time, it was like, that's the brand I'm going to end with. I'm there for life. And then of course, this whole fucking grandiose world of other cigars presents itself. And then I go, what? CAO, what? But there's a lot of that exists in the cigar industry where you get your Fuente dick riders, you get your Perdomo dick riders, you get your Patel dick riders. It's something that irks me to no end because of just how much I know good things are out there. There's so much to explore. And I would argue some of the best cigars that have ever been created are by brands that you don't know. And the experience that I had going to Jungle Gyms and looking in that bargain bin, I'll use this as an example. I really like Patoro cigars. Not many people who smoke cigars know who Patoro is. Patoro Cigars was founded by the grandson of Davidoff. It's a Dominican cigar company. They're some of the fucking wildest fucking cigars I've ever had. Literally from a flavor profile perspective, remind me of Davidoff a little bit because of how crazy they are. Dude, I bought these cigars for $3 or $4. They MSRP for $15. People are just on the fucking dicks of these big brands and don't know what really good stuff is out there.
Yeah.
The Toro is a perfect example of something that people should try that they'll never give a fucking chance.
Yeah.
So in terms of main cigar brands, the big brands, Chris, what do you think about like the Fuentes of the world, the Perdomos of the world, the Patels of the world, the Ashtons of the world, the Padrones of the world?
I think they're associated with a veteran smoker that I pray has tried so many cigars in their past that they stick to what they like when it comes to that. From a new smoker perspective, one that gets fixated on one particular blend becomes very narrow viewed, in my opinion. Like if you start sticking with one brand when you're a relatively new smoker and you haven't tried a lot of brands, you're missing the boat. And I think there's a certain amount of comfort that comes around with randomly finding a cigar and then it's good and then you stick with it because you don't want to risk the chance of spending $8 on a stick you're going to hate or not knowing where to look to find something. But that said, I feel like it is in our generation's, I guess, determination or perspective to say, I think you should encourage yourself to try everything, because what you'll find is that when you smoke for 5 to 10 years and you've tried a lot of shit, you might find the brands that you will stick with ongoing, right?
Of
um
course.
so it makes sense from that standpoint. But again, asterisks, if you're a new smoker, try not to stick with a brand that you know you like. I've seen the same guys that will buy a $4 stick. Not to say you can't find a good $4 stick, but I'll see guys that'll smoke these $4 sticks they might get on Cigar International, and they exude this type of, praise to these cigars that they find amazing, and they'll share one with me, and I will do it out of courtesy and friendship to try that cigar. And I just think in my head, I'm just like, dude, you were missing so many great opportunities to try other stuff that's amazing.
Right.
And you try to convince them to try to like change their palate, like, no, 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 this is what I like. And I'm just like, dude, you're missing the fucking boat.
Yeah, forget the $3 or $4 investment. Spend an extra couple bucks and then blow your mind.
Yeah, and just try shit. Like, that is the only way you're really going to truly have a good perspective on what is good and what isn't. Now, as it pertains to like brand dick writing, save the brand dick writing until you've had a lot of cigars.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, if you're a Fuente fan for life, I'm hoping you've exposed yourself to a bunch of other different things. And then you've come to the determination on your own that Fuente is the thing for you.
Yeah.
But I don't like the whole dick writing idea and saying that Fuente is the only thing I have. It's everything I'll only have, or it's all I'll ever fucking smoke, and that's it, and that's all.
Yeah.
And everything else is subpar. I think that's a wrong belief to have in terms of cigar smoking experience, because there's so much stuff out there. And you said it earlier. The idea of exploration is great. You can literally do subscriptions. Like, if you don't know what's good out there, you're relying on somebody to give you something that you otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to. Doing like My Cigar Pack, right? Getting a monthly subscription of something that, yeah, there may be a few in there that you've had before, but there's likely going to be a few that you haven't had. And just to get an opportunity to smoke something you've never tried before, dude, that gets me giddy. I go, what is this? I
Yeah.
want to smoke this. This is cool. I've never had one of these before. I can't wait. And dude, I've been pleasantly surprised. More often than not, I've been pleasantly surprised by something I've never heard of before. And I smoke it and I go, what is this?
Yeah.
This is great. I mean, that happens very often. So big brand dick riders kind of drive me nuts. But do you feel that at all that the big brand dick rider era is going to dissipate pretty significantly as we roll into the next 10 to 15 to 20 years?
I do. But there's always going to be that sense of tribalism that we also see in the cigar industry, right? Where you get so fixated on one brand that it is that brand against another brand, which
Right.
in most cases, a brand is not, even though they're competing from a general market share perspective, or they're, a similar product. I don't think brands really try to compete with one another either. But it's like
Not,
the consumer base does it that way. Like
yeah, like the consumer base dictates it. Yeah, that is interesting, because I think about like in the electronics world, I think about like Samsung and LG that are literally at each other's throats at all times, right? Working for an organization that represents both, I can be in a strategic meeting with LG and they go, the whole idea is to take this much market share from Samsung. Then I can be in a meeting with Samsung and they go, this is exactly how much market share we want to take from LG. And being part of a company, one of the biggest companies in terms of electronics in the entire fucking world, it's significant in terms of what we do in our business, and they are fucking cutthroat about it. And when I mean cutthroat, dude, it's fucking insane when I watch that. I've never seen that in cigars.
Yeah.
Never to that degree. I've never looked at a Tatuaje and a Tatuaje go, I'm going to cut the throat of fucking crown heads tomorrow. It's never existed, ever. I've never once seen it. Now, maybe when you get into the big brands that are really fighting for like meaningful percentages, if you think about like a Fuente, I think at one time was owning like 22% of the market share in terms of cigars. And I don't want to say it's international. I want to say that that's nationally in the US. And then you have someone falling right behind him, which you have like the Ashens of the world. You have Drew Estate that's going to make it in there, the Padrones of the world. Those guys may be jockeying for percentages, but I would argue that it's not to cut the throat of the competition. It's just how do we do things better to get more exposure in the industry? How do we create a connection, a better connection to the consumer?
Yeah.
It's less of a cutthroat market. So you're right. Some of that is just like the consumer mentality and less the brand mentality, which is a really interesting dynamic.
Yep.
It's a lot different than most industries.
Have you noticed how grainy my video's gotten over time?
Yeah, I said the ISO is fucking having a hard goddamn time. All right, so that's good, but then we'll end it here then. Since you're basically like falling to the night. And it's weird too because I have no sunlight coming in now, so like my fucking purple is like bright purple behind me. Yeah, let's end it here. It's a good time to end. It's just over an hour. So I like this. This was cool talking about the 5 things we hate, and there's definitely a lot more of them. So maybe we'll interlace this in depending on listener and audience feedback in terms of how they like the episode. Just us ranting and raving about shit we don't like in the cigar industry. Now, I will say this. There's plenty of stuff that we obviously like in the cigar industry. There's more that we like than we don't like.
For sure.
These are just some of the things that kind of irk me and I was thinking about and been challenged by in the recent few weeks. And I kind of wanted to put them out on paper and just talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Gets us away from the monotony. We do have, so I'll have a review coming out this weekend. I'll just spoil it now. It'll be the Dias de Gloria by AJ Fernandez. Will be released in the next couple days. You can check out our previous reviews, released 3 last week. You can check those out at www.hotticketweekly.com. Want to thank Alex again for making the flight from the Dominican all the way to fucking poor ass little only Dayton, Ohio. Stay with me a couple of days. And he is, Alex is the owner of My Cigar Pack, and they are our only show sponsor by design. So visit them at www.mycigarpack.com. They have some fucking awesome shit coming up. I know that just because I think drunkenly he told me, but I'm not sure that I'm supposed to expose any of that on the podcast. So I will refrain from saying anything further. But you can check them out again at www.mycigarpack.com. Enter promo code HOT10 at checkout for $10 off your first pack.
Yep. And that
Chris,
Mil Diaz, people, I know we've been keeping you up on it.
It's out.
Mil Diaz has hit shelves. In fact, we got some in the mail, Corey. We got some.
Dude, you owe me. So it's funny because I bought the Kappa last week because you were supposed to bring me some and you never did. So I just went and bought some.
Oh, I got a bunch for you.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Not a bunch, but like some.
Are you in town this weekend? Or are you going to Kentucky?
I'll be here Sunday.
So where are you tomorrow?
Kentucky.
Well, why don't you just drop them off on your way down? You're going down 75.
I could do that, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, if not, I will come get them Sunday, but I play hockey Sunday, so I'd rather not do that. But
that's true.
Are you going to lounge on Sunday?
Yep.
I think I'm going to go on Sunday. I'm a bachelor till Tuesday, so I actually have some free time to do some shit. So,
dude, it's getting spooky. This is how I should have done the Bones episode last week.
Dude, I know. I'm thinking I'm going to see some bats in the background. All right, let's wrap it up because you're getting grainy as fuck. I see a lot of artifacting in your picture right now. All right, that'll conclude episode 166. We'll be back at you guys next week with episode 167. See you, everyone.
See ya.